Kenan, Michael Dickson, Thomas Hand. How are you, Thomas?
A little bit frightened. Oh, right.
Microphone.
A little bit frightened, but I'm fine, thanks.
Not from us.
From this, yeah.
You dealt with Hamas. I'm not.
This is a different level.
Different level. Ella, we will let Thomas to breathe for a few more minutes before we're going to start the interview. You know, I have to be honest. I have to admit that I believe that something about the 7th of October massacre would be the moment when the world will change its opinion. Maybe we'll understand what we're dealing with and who we are dealing with. And I was surprised how quickly that assumption turned out to be wrong.
Well, I thought the same on October 7th, but on October 8th, I've already seen the Palestinian, you know, they have this machine that is working 365 days a year, starting to create a different narrative on social media, the one that contradicts reality, but that doesn't matter to them. And I thought we had an opportunity to set the agenda for once and for all, let's say.
We're going to talk about it. Michael, same question.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Ofer, and thank you to the WZO, and thank you all for being here. I'm actually lived in Israel for 18 years. I run StandWithUs out of it. We're on 5 continents, but I run our global office that's based in Jerusalem. I know it's 18 years because my daughter, who was 2 years old when we made Aliyah, just got another stripe as an officer in the south in the IDF. So that's how we judge time in Israel, right?
Beautiful.
Things like that. One other quick thanks, if I may. You know, I get called to do a lot of media interviews, and it's tough in any circumstances, but to have been in front of the media so compellingly and powerfully while your daughter was kidnapped, and to have done it in such a way that represented not just you and not just your friends who were kidnapped, but all of us in Israel with such dignity, I think that we all owe you, Thomas, a huge thanks. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ella, you know, you brought the social media expertise to one very, very effective slogan, Hamas is ISIS. How effective it was and how big was the influence of this slogan when you see it through the 4 or 5 months since the beginning of the war?
Well, it could be summed down to a very simple result. We've seen on Telegram groups of Hamas militants, Hamas terrorists, them asking, they already closed the group since then because they saw that we entered their groups. They called the high command not to execute the kidnapped Israelis on October 8th, October 9th, October 10th, because of the Hamas is ISIS slogan, because they didn't want their branding to be associated with ISIS. You know, they have this brand of freedom fighters. Now, we all know it's a lie, but that's their brand. And once they were associated with ISIS, they understood that they can't do a lot of things that they wanted to do. And I'll give you another example. Abu Ubaidah, which is the spokesperson for Hamas, he says on October 8th, in the afternoon, if Israel will continue to attack Gaza, we'll execute a hostage every hour, and we'll do it online. And after that, he never repeats that. And one of the reasons he didn't repeat that is because of this branding that we created for them. It hurt them so much that they decided to change paths. So this is the type of influence, and this is the work of the Jewish people. This is the work of the Israelis and the Jewish communities around the world that all work together to create this viral campaign around the world, and that's it. Yeah.
I want to watch, Thomas, with you, a clip from an interview with Piers Morgan a few weeks after Emily was released for captivity. We have it here.
Incredible.
How do you feel about the general situation now, 100 days on, from the appalling terror attacks that hit you and so many families? How do you feel about the debate about the war itself, about Israel's response? Some people feeling it's become disproportionate because so many civilians are being killed. What do you feel about
that? They don't know a thing. We're living it, okay? We're living it. We have been living it every day for 20 years. You have no idea. You have no right to even speak to me. Have you been to Israel, ever? Any one of you saying it's disproportionate? Has any one of you come to see apartheid in this country? It doesn't exist, you idiots. It doesn't exist. Look at all the road signs. Come and look at all the road signs. It's in Hebrew, it's in Arabic, and it's in English. All the buses with the electronic writing have Hebrew, Arabic, and English. Do you honestly think the country would go to that much trouble having all the road signs in all three languages? It wouldn't. If it were apartheid, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't waste your money, for crying out loud. Come to any hospital in this country. Come to any school in this country. Come to any city in this country. You'll find Arabs, women, female Arabs, professors in hospitals, everywhere, doctors. You're talking out of your bottoms. You have no idea.
Can I ask you something personally?
Of course.
You're crying out of pain, out of frustration?
Yeah, everything. Memories, trauma, tragedy. Just for the people of Israel, the Jewish population, culture everywhere. Again, yeah, I just can't help myself. I'm too close to it.
Are you crying now as well?
Just can't help it.
We all want to give you a big hug. You know that there is something so frustrating about the fact that you're sitting there with your 9 years old girl. You have enough supply for the rest of the interview.
Should be enough, I hope.
And you're being asked about proportionality. What's your explanation for that? 9-year-old that was kidnapped by terrorists, and you're still being asked about proportionality. How can you explain it?
As a father, I have no proportion about our response to what they have done to us. It was atrocious, horrendous, frightening. I never want to see another day like that. You know, they killed my friends, family, completely wiped out. There is no disproportion in our reaction to that. And we're doing it, thank God. And I hope we do it to the very, very end, because if we don't, all the tragedies, all the murders, the kidnapped, the raped, the tortured, it'll all be for nothing. We have to go all the way to the end and finish this job. If we back out before the job is done, it'll all be for nothing. All be for nothing. They'll crawl back in the next 10 years, and it'll all happen again. We have to stop it right now.
Ella, you know that the most amazing part of what's going on in the social media are the comments and the posts on clips that you've published in the past few months about kids that are there in Gaza, at least at the beginning before the first deal. And is this, and you're asking yourself, is this some normal person sits behind the computer and writes it, or is it a machine? What was the engine behind it?
Okay, so there are two parts of it. Some of these people are bots. There is a machine that is working online to create a narrative, to create a discourse that doesn't favor Israel nor the Jewish people. And it influences on a lot of people that go into that because they think, you know, we all talk about facts. Everybody, why don't you just explain the facts? Well, unfortunately, facts don't matter. People operate on their feelings, and they want to feel like they are in the right side of humanity when they're very ignorant about it. So when they see this discourse on social media, they react in ways that maybe if I would talk to that person, he wouldn't have said that. And if he knew what I know, he wouldn't have said that. So it's a combination of both.
No, but you want to believe that there are things that are out of the conflict. Kids. And what I was amazed by was the fact that even kids and kidnapping kids is not out of this conflict.
I couldn't unnotice the fact that Jewish children, the nitpicking about their death, you know, we have a different bar than the rest. We need to prove that every child that was killed, if his head was cut off or not. You know, there was a New York Times reporter that wrote, you know, I've been to Israel, I've seen it. There were children without their head, but it doesn't mean that somebody beheaded them. The nitpicking on our death is something I haven't seen. You know, I know two things. This kid had a whole body before October 7th, and then afterwards, he didn't. That's the only thing you should know about the people who did that. And the nitpicking, that is something that is very unique to the Jewish people. We are the only one that have to explain this high of a standard.
What happened to the head? You're the only one that has to explain what happened to the head of the kid.
The only one that need actually to discuss, even answer, or see discussions online. And by the way, also influences the media, the more traditional media as well, because it's also the social media influences everything.
Yeah, Michael.
Absolutely, and Jewish women as well. Jewish women held to a different standard, apparently, than any other woman in the world. And why should someone like Thomas have to go in front of the TV cameras and when he's talking about the most awful human tragedy, have to then be a spokesperson for the state of Israel and be challenged and questioned on legitimacy and proportionality and these things? So there's definitely a double standard operating here. The good news is, my friends, we can level the playing field, like Ella is doing, like many are doing, like we're doing at Stand With Us, by giving backup to people like Thomas and sharing his stories and sharing the stories of the kidnapped people. And when Hamas is saying, will they stop talking about October the 7th? No, we will not stop talking about October the 7th. You know, at Stand With Us, we have 1 billion interactions on social media since October the 7th. That means that every time you share and every time you like and every time you comment, it makes a difference. It reaches new audiences. People sometimes say, well, aren't we just preaching to the choir? Well, I wish, halavai, there were 1 billion Jews in the world. There aren't, but that means that we're penetrating through. And we'll do it by telling human interest stories, and we'll do it by repeating key messages, and we'll do it by telling the story of what happened to our people, and by showing our pride in our Judaism and our pride in Israel online on every single social media platform possible.
Although, Thomas, I have to be honest, and it has to be said, I think that you are probably one of the only Israelis who have experienced some empathy from the foreign media. Do you think or feel that it's because Emily's story, or maybe it has something to do with the fact that you're both Irish citizens?
Mainly the story about Emily. She looks sweet. She is sweet. She got into people's hearts. Me crying all over the place on television. I never read from a script. whatever question they ask me, it just comes out. I don't know what's going to come out. And that, I'm not a politician. I'm not used to speaking at all. It's just natural emotion. And I think that's what enters people's minds and hearts.
But when you say yes, when people want to interview you, you know that it's something that is not easy for you. What's the reason that brings you to the cameras again and again?
Well, obviously, at first, it was to get Emily back, to highlight the fact that she was an Irish citizen, dual nationality. I know in the past has helped people in captivity, so I just went full on into the media. Since I got her back, thank God, I believe it helped highlighting her. I was very worried about it at first. Should I highlight her or let her be one of the anonymous in the background? But once I realized and thought she has Irish citizenship, I had to go full bore on that. And since then, I've got her back. I could have said, wow, great, job done. But we've still got loads and loads and loads of hostages still in there. Youngsters, women, God knows what they're going through. Men, soldiers, they're probably getting a terrible, terrible time. We've got to get them back. I just want to keep the plight of the Jews, of the hostages, at the top of the list in people's minds, in the media. Because everything becomes old news in the end, unfortunately.
We won't let that happen.
Yeah.
Trust me, as much as I'm concerned. Michael, I want to ask you about the educational aspect. I have to say that I am not worried about this generation, about the public opinion on this war. You see the next generation. You see the kids that, being poisoned by what's going on now on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. And I think that we don't even start to understand and imagine how big is the damage for 20 years from now. Do you see this as well?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that we have the duty to make that a concerted effort and push back against that right now. Look, it also affects, by the way, our own children. Our own children on TikTok, on Instagram, and all these platforms, they also see and feel the anti-Semitism. So one of the things that we're trying to do is educate our own Jewish children and allies of Israel how they can push back against hate, use the platform mechanisms that you can report hate and get it taken off, and then push forward. We have to work in sync with what was discussed on the previous panel. You have to be responsive. You never let a lie accumulate. If there's a vacuum there and it's filled with misinformation, you don't just let them lie, you push back. And then at the same time, strategic. We will never be defined by who our enemies say we are. So we have to put forward a positive, proactive agenda for Israel and the Jewish people and show it to the world. And I reject completely the idea that everyone is against us.
No,
we have allies and we have friends, and we can help young people to push forward and reach out to more and more people. Straight after October the 7th, we saw it Stand With Us, people like Justin Bieber sharing our content and the Kardashians sharing our content. This stuff reaches far beyond where we expect it, and I truly believe that, like in the real world, the loudest voices are sometimes the ones that you hear, but there's a huge silent majority out there on social media and in the community that we can reach. We have to reach them.
Although the numbers, we're millions, there are billions.
But the good thing
Talking about proportionality.
You know what? That's always been the story of the Jewish people. We're the David and the David-Goliath story. Guess what? David wins. We have the ability to use tools like social media to punch above our weight and leverage it to reach more and more people. And we can do it, but we have to be committed to the fight.
Yeah. Ella, the teenagers that are watching these movies and this propaganda against Israel now are the next generation's politician, for an example. How can we deal with this now?
So I think we need to change the paradigm. Again, move from hasbara. In Hebrew, it means to explain. When do you need to give explanations? Tell me. I think the terminology we chose is, it's not good. It doesn't serve us. I prefer influence. It already means you're succeeding. So first of all, I would change the terminology. Second of all, we need to understand that, explaining the facts doesn't change their identity, doesn't make them change their mind. And I'll give you an example. When they see a clip on TikTok, nothing related to us, I don't know, the war in Yemen, the civil war in Yemen, and they see it for a minute, do you think that they go to Google afterwards and they fact check if what they've seen for a minute is true or not? No, because for them, this is reality. They are different than us. When I was in high school, I had Facebook, but today, they start really young, and their identity is shaped by the people they follow, but what they put in their bio. They can put Free Palestine without even knowing what they're putting because it's cool, like Black Lives Matter. This is the whole thing. So what we need to do, and I agree with Michael, on one hand, respond, but on the other hand, set the agenda. We need to set the narrative, and we need to control social media. What we do is use communities. We've built online communities of tens of thousands of Israelis and Jews, but also Indians that support Israel, and they cover for our, we're not as big as they are. They are the biggest population in the world, and they love Israel, and they love the Jews. And we have an online community of them supporting us online and helping us go viral and get to more people. We have a community that we're forming in Eastern Europe. We have all kinds of communities that can help us, as Michael said, punch above our weight.
But you both know that it's not only about fighting against the numbers of likes and the virality of the videos and posts, but also about the policies of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok that create a very comfortable basis for anti-Israeli propaganda. This is something that is organized by them.
Absolutely, and I gave testimony to an investigation into Meta, into Facebook, following May 2021, a previous war that we had about on behalf of Stand With Us, about their inherent issues about keeping anti-Semitic content up, keeping terror content up, not being as strict in Arabic or in transliterated Arabic as they are with some other languages, particularly in English, and also both sidesing the issue. One of the things Facebook was saying was, well, there's hate in Arabic and there's hate in Hebrew, right? Well, there may be some element of hate in all different languages, but one of them doesn't lead to the kind of genocidal terror that we see in Hamas. So we have to hold the social media companies' feet to the fire and say to them, this is your house. And if you're allowing within your house the kind of extremism and anti-Semitism that we've seen to date, there's something very, very wrong, and we have to make a fuss about that.
Ella?
Well, I could give you an example. I totally agree with Michael. On Twitter, there is a community tool called Community Notes. It's a relatively new one, and what it sets to do is when a person posts a tweet and we know it's fake news, for example, or it's incitement, then the community has the power to add a note to their post and give the context or the truth. Now, this is important for two reasons. One, again, giving the context. You can't just post whatever you want on social media and incite against Jews or Israelis. There are accounts that just post like the airplane going into the Twin Towers and say, well, Jews did that, who agree? And then 4 million likes. And the second thing, that leads me to the second thing, they get monetized by it because Twitter pays you when you're a content creator by the amount of views and impressions that you get. So when they post these things, this incitement against Jews or Israel, then they also get money for that. But once you have a note, you get demonetized for that post. And money is it's a key thing that we should take care of in that sort. So the problem in this war is that it was open in North America, in Europe, in Australia, but where wasn't it open? In Israel. And we've seen really big accounts on social media, on Twitter, posting anti-Israel fake news content every day, and we couldn't respond. So we started an online campaign, my team and I, called Let My People Note, to Elon Musk. And, you know, day one of asking Elon Musk, and we just commented on his tweets until after 4 days, he said, he responded to us and said, okay, you're
Twitter?
right. On Twitter,
Yeah.
he responded to us and he said, you know what, you're right. We'll open community notes for you. And then 2 days later,
Beautiful.
he opened community notes to us. And then 2 days after, I met him here in Jerusalem when he visited Israel. And I told him, you know,
It's me.
it's me.
Hello, it's
and
me.
I thought he doesn't even know. So, oh yes, I remember you guys. You're the ones with let my community know, let my people know, right? I was like, yeah. It's like, I saw what you wrote to the Irish Prime Minister, the first community note that we used, and it was on Emily, the Irish Prime Minister. You remember that? He wrote a tweet. I'm glad that Emily was lost and found.
Yeah, lost.
So we
She went to the
added a
park.
note
She went to the park and
that she wasn't lost
And she was
wasn't
lost.
found. She was kidnapped by a murderous terrorist organization. So just to give you an example about policies and how you change them with the power of
And
community.
it shows the power that you can have. You can leverage real-world events with online activism. So we
Yeah.
have to be in the game.
And the Irish Prime Minister issued an apology afterwards. That means because he's like the note got a lot of traction. So us, the small person, you know, just me with my iPhone, I could do a lot of change when I'm with my community. And my community are you guys. We are all together as the Jewish people creating real changes. So, yeah.
Thomas, what definitely deserve? What do you think brought the Prime Minister to do this? Do you think he wanted to protect in a way on terrorists, or he wanted just to say something that won't cause any... what was the reason for that?
It was a very unfortunate statement that he wrote. I met him the first week of trying to get Emily back, and he was amazing, truly. He did a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but he's a politician at the end of the day. He can't come out one way or the other. They have to sit on the fence.
But here's the question again. You're not talking about the Muslim community or being... It's not about politically correct. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. Kidnapping kids is against any international law. It's supposed to be the most clear and strict point. Why was it so difficult to him to say this is a terrorist organization that kidnapped a kid? Why did he? What brought him to say to present it the way he did?
I'm sure some of it is fear. It's very dangerous to say anything against the Muslims. Look at France, Paris. And he needs the votes. He wants the votes. He doesn't want to lose the pro-Palestinian vote. He doesn't want to lose the pro-Israeli votes. He has to sit on the fence and talk carefully.
Is there a pro-Israeli voice in Ireland?
That he's assuming that all the Muslim community in his country supports Hamas.
Yeah, of course. They secretly support them. They won't come out right and say it, but of course, they rejoiced.
And he secretly supports their
7th.
support. And he secretly supports their support.
No, I don't think he supports them.
If he's afraid of it.
He just doesn't want to lose their vote. Simple as that. He's a politician. He wants to get re-elected.
And this is part of the story in all Europe, Michael. And this is a very, very big part of the story in all Europe these days.
Definitely. And again, we spoke in the previous panel about the numbers of the Jewish community, small numbers of pockets of different Jewish communities across Europe. But again, if we're committed to education, we have to understand that social media can be a force for good. And we have to co-opt that and utilize it in order to reach out to people. So I genuinely do believe that there is a groundswell of people in the middle. They call them the silent majority for a reason. We have to encourage them to be less silent. Mm-hmm. But we know it, and I know it from my own experience at StandWithUs. Our second most viewed language on social media after English is Arabic. We have people reaching out to us from all over the Gulf and all over the Arab world saying, just so you know, Hamas doesn't represent me. Iran, where I live, doesn't represent me. The Palestinian Authority doesn't represent me. And we've had people who've turned to us and said, you've changed our opinions because of the content that you've put out and what I've seen and engaged with.
Yeah.
So you can do it. We just have to be committed to doing it.
Ela, do you think that the social media and its managers are motivated by anti-Israeli sentiment, or maybe they're simply doing what's good for their business?
I think it's combined of all of these. I don't think that the heads of these companies are anti-Israel biased. Maybe they are, but I don't think this is what affects them. I think first and foremost, it's money. No doubt about that. And a lot of hate on social media creates more time that people spend on social media, spreading that hate, making it viral. That allows this time that people spend on social media creates more time for them to see ads that people pay for this social media platform. And this is a big motivation for these companies. I think we should, it's not related to Israel specifically or the Jewish people. Having said that, I do know from friends of mine and people I work with that work in these companies outside of Israel, social media platforms, in their headquarters or other offices around the world, there is a great sense at work of anti-Israel sentiment, and it does affect on how they judge things when we report them and when we're trying to take it down. That is a very important issue, and that's why we should also understand that, yeah, there are politicians, and yes, diplomacy is very important, but politicians are very keen to the sentiment of their people, especially in democratic countries. And if we do really want to create a change, we have to work on the lowest level of people. Exactly, grassroots, because that puts a lot of pressure on the politicians, on these companies. That's what sets apart a company that has an anti-Israel bias or sentiment at the work or not. So that's how I see it.
Last sentence from you, Michael, and from you, Thomas.
We're all in this together. We have to continue to tell the story of October the 7th. We must not let the survivors' stories go unknown by people. We must keep their names in the press. We cannot stop until our kidnapped hostages are released, and we have to post and comment and support each other in doing that to get our message across. And we can do it, and we can do it.
Thomas.
Yep, I agree. The priority for Israel now is to get the hostages back, every single one of them if they can. And the propaganda war is vital. We haven't really realized until now. They won that war a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago. We didn't have anyone that could speak proper English. It was all stuttered and it was embarrassing. And only now we have someone, they've obviously realized it's vital to the war with the Hamas, the Muslim world. We need to win that one.
Definitely. Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your emotions with us. Michael, Ella, thank you all. Thank you for listening.